Elon Musk has 14 children with multiple mothers, and he says there's one reason behind it all. What he believes is a global underpopulation crisis. For more than 2 decades, that belief has shaped some of the biggest personal decisions of his life. The story behind that mission reveals a side of Musk far removed from rockets and electric cars. Let's start with the number itself, because it keeps changing, and that's kind of the point. As of right now, Elon Musk is the father of 14 children. Not 2, not 4, 14. And his 14 children have been welcomed with 5 different women over the span of more than 2 decades. Let's walk through how we got here, because the pattern matters. It starts back in 2000. Musk marries his first wife, a Canadian author named Justine Wilson. 2 years later, they have their first child, a son named Nevada. He dies at 10 weeks old from sudden infant death syndrome. Musk has talked about that loss more than once over the years. In one email exchange, he put it plainly, "My firstborn son died in my arms." He and Justine didn't stop there. They went through IVF and had twins, Griffin and Vivian, followed by triplets, Kai, Saxon, and Damien. That's 6 kids with one woman inside a marriage that ended in divorce in 2008. Then there's a gap, a long one. Publicly speaking, Musk marries actress Tallulah Riley, twice actually, divorces and remarries her, but they never have kids together. For years, the how many kids? Does Elon Musk have question just sits at 6. Then 2020 hits, and things start moving fast. He starts a relationship with the musician Grimes, legal name Claire Boucher, and they have a son they name X, a 12. A name so strange it makes international news before the kid can even open his eyes. Then a daughter, Exa Dark Citadel. Then a third child, Techno Mechanicus. 3 kids with Grimes, except, and this is where it gets complicated, while he's still with Grimes, he's quietly having children with someone else entirely. A Neuralink executive named Siobhan Zillis. Their daughter Azure and son Strider were born in November 2021, just weeks before the birth of Elon and Grimes' daughter Exa. 2 women pregnant with his children. At the same time, it wasn't until July 2022, however, that Azure's and Strider's existence was made public. Zillis didn't stop at twins. She and Musk go on to have a 3rd child, a daughter named Arcadia, and then a 4th, a son named Selden Lycurgus, born in early 2025. 4 kids, 1 Neuralink executive, all through IVF. And then there's the name everyone was talking about at the start of last year, Ashley St. Clair, a conservative influencer. In February, she goes public, writing on X 5 months ago, "I welcomed a new baby into the world." Elon Musk is the father. She hadn't said anything for months, and when she finally did, it wasn't quiet. She filed a paternity petition and asked for sole custody. That's 5 women, 14 kids, some through marriage, some through IVF, with people he calls friends or colleagues, one through what he's described as a private relationship that became a court filing. Here's the thing that makes this different from just rich guy has a lot of kids. Zillis was asked directly why she chose to have children with her boss instead of using an anonymous donor, and her answer, as recorded in Walter Isaacson's biography, wasn't about romance. She said, "He really wants smart people to have kids, so he encouraged me to," adding that if the choice is between an anonymous sperm donor or doing it with the person you admire most in the world, for me that was a pretty fecking easy decision, and that she can't possibly think of genes I would prefer for my children. That's not a love story in the traditional sense. That's a mission statement, and Musk's own biographer has said as much about the man himself. Isaacson went on TV and explained it without much room for interpretation. Musk believes people should have many more children, and personally wants to have a lot of children. So the family tree isn't really a family tree in the normal sense. It's closer to a production schedule: 6 kids with his first wife, 3 with a pop star, 4 with a Neuralink executive he calls his intellectual companion, 1 with a political influencer who had to go to court to get him legally recognized as the father. Every single expansion of that family has come with the same public reaction from Musk. Not embarrassment, not privacy, but a tweet about population. When the Zealous twins became public knowledge, he didn't dodge it. He leaned into it, tweeting that a collapsing birth rate was the biggest danger civilization faces, framing his own newborns. As part of the solution to a crisis, he says most people aren't taking seriously. When St. Clair's son became public, the story wasn't really about a new relationship. Reporters covering it kept circling back to the same context. A billionaire who has said openly and often that having more kids is one of the most important things a person can do. There's also a detail that gets lost in the parade of baby announcements. Musk isn't just fathering children within relationships, according to reporting. From the New York Times, Musk reportedly offered friends and associates the use of his sperm in conceiving children, including one such suggestion to Nicole Shanahan, the vice presidential pick for the Independent Robert F. Kennedy Jr. campaign. Shanahan rejected the suggestion. That wasn't a one-off either. The tech executive also offered his sperm to a couple he didn't know well during a dinner party at the home of a well-known Silicon Valley executive. So this isn't a guy stumbling into a big family through a string of relationships that just happened to produce kids. This is somebody actively, repeatedly, and publicly trying to put more of his genetics into the world, with wives, with colleagues, with near strangers at dinner parties. 14 confirmed kids is the number today, given the pattern of the last 5 years. Nobody who's been tracking this expects it to be the final number. That raises the obvious question: why? What is it that's actually driving this? Because rich people have affairs and messy families all the time. That's not new. What's new is the reason Musk keeps giving for it, out loud, on the same platform he owns, over and over again. And that reason is where we need to go next. To understand why Musk keeps having kids, you have to go back to the thing he says more than almost anything else on his platform: population collapse. This isn't a passing comment he made once. It's a drumbeat that's been going for years, and it escalates. Back in 2021, he posted that population collapse is potentially the greatest risk to the future of civilization. A year later, he doubled down, tweeting a collapsing birth rate is the biggest danger civilization faces by far. And he doesn't just say it once and move on. When China's birth rate numbers dropped, he was there with a warning. Population collapse due to low birth rates is a much bigger risk to civilization than global warming. Mark these words. When the topic of Social Security's depleting trust fund came up, he tied it straight back to birth rates too, pointing to Japan as a leading indicator of where declining birth rates take a country. He's used some genuinely dark language to describe what he thinks happens if nothing changes. In one post responding to Hungary's pro-natalist policies, he wrote that we must create the next generation of humans or spiral into oblivion. In another, describing what continued birth rate decline looks like, he put it this way: if the alarming collapse in birth rate continues, civilization will indeed die with a whimper in adult diapers. That's the emotional core of his position, not gentle encouragement to have families, but genuine, repeated warning of extinction-level stakes. And it's not just an abstract policy view for him. He's tied his own choices directly to it. The clearest version of that came out during his Tucker Carlson interview, where he laid out a theory about why birth rates are falling in the first place. He argued that for most of human history, people procreated because of pure biological drive, what he called limbic system rewards, but that in the past we could rely upon, simple limbic system rewards in order to procreate. But once you have birth control and abortions and whatnot, now you can still satisfy limbic instinct, but not procreate. His argument was that society hasn't caught up to contraception because it's only been around, in his words, for the last 50 years or so. Whatever you think of that theory, it tells you exactly how Musk sees his own 14 kids. not as an accident of a messy personal life, as him personally opting out of what he thinks is a broken pattern, deliberately having the kids that in his framing, most modern people are choosing not to. He's also framed this as something close to an intelligence issue, not just a numbers issue. He's been quoted making the argument that it's specifically the smart, capable people who are having fewer kids, while he put it this way: if each successive generation of smart people has fewer kids, that's probably bad. That's the same logic Zillies used to explain her own choice to have kids with him instead of a donor. The idea that his genetics, specifically, were worth passing on, not just genetics in general. Now, here's where you start to see how far this goes beyond his own bedroom. Musk has put actual money behind this belief. According to reporting, he's endorsed a book on the subject, tweeting, "This is a close match for my philosophy," and has been reported to be funding research specifically focused on population collapse as a field of study, not just tweeting about it as an internet opinion. He's also pushed the idea that the planet isn't close to full. Earlier reporting noted he'd argued that Earth could maintain a population many times the current level. That's a direct rebuttal to the more common worry, that there are too many people on the planet, not too few. And it's central to why he thinks the underpopulation crisis framing is the one people should be worried about, not overpopulation or climate change. And this is where his 14 kids stop being a personal quirk and start looking like policy advocacy carried out through his own body. He's floated the idea that having more kids should come with direct financial incentive, tweeting that having children should be incentivized, not be a financial penalty like it is in most countries. He's praised international leaders who've pushed pro-natalist government policy. He's talked about the mechanics of an aging population in almost clinical terms, too. At one point telling an audience that the world is likely to suffer a population collapse in 20 to 30 years, and the effects could be dramatic for the United States, and warning elsewhere that people are living longer. That's the only reason why the population of Earth isn't plummeting. There's a specific phrase he's used that gets repeated a lot in coverage of this, about what happens to young people if the population pyramid inverts. He's warned that the effects could be dramatic, framing the danger as young workers essentially being forced to carry the weight of a much larger elderly population. So when you put it all together, the tweets, the funded research, the policy opinions, the biography quotes from the mothers of his children, you get a pretty consistent picture. Musk isn't just a guy who happens to like kids. He's built an entire worldview around the idea that declining birth rates are the single biggest threat facing human civilization. Bigger than climate change, bigger than nuclear war, bigger than anything else currently on the table. And having 14 kids with 5 women isn't separate from that worldview. It's him acting on it, personally, kid by kid, publicly, on the same website he uses to make the argument in the first place. But Musk didn't invent this out of nowhere, and he's not alone in it. There's a whole movement built around exactly this idea, with its own conferences, its own leaders, and its own very specific ideas about which babies matter most. That's where we need to go next. Musk didn't build this belief system by himself, and he's not the only one betting his own family on it. There's an actual movement here, with a name, a conference, and a set of leaders who talk about their own children in almost the exact same language Zillis used about hers. The movement calls itself pronatalism, and its most visible faces right now are a couple named Malcolm and Simone Collins. They're described as being at the center of a new pronatalist movement that encourages elite couples to have as many children as possible to stave off what they and others, including most prominently Elon Musk, see as an impending population collapse. The Collinses don't just talk about this, they live it in a way that makes Musk's 14 kids look almost restrained by comparison. Reporting on the couple noted they had 4 children at the time, with 34 embryos on ice, planning to implant one every 2 or 3 years until Simone's uterus literally ruptures and needs to be removed. That's not a metaphor, that's their stated plan. Malcolm Collins has talked about what he thinks is at stake if people like him don't keep having kids. He told one outlet that the people who are willing to make the sacrifices and engage with the movement seriously are going to be the people who write the future of humanity. And he's estimated that at least half of pronatalists are in the tech world. That tech world concentration is the part that connects straight back to Musk. This isn't a fringe rural movement about traditional family values. It's specifically taken hold among Silicon Valley's wealthiest and most influential people. One report described it as Silicon Valley elites quietly appointing themselves ancestors of the future, as American fertility rates continue to hit record lows well below the replacement rate. Sam Altman, the OpenAI CEO, is cited in the same breath as Musk, having said, "Of course I'm going to have a big family," and is reportedly investing in experimental fertility technology of his own. There's an actual conference now, it's called NatalCon, and it's held in Austin. Not coincidentally, the same city where Musk has based much of his own operation, including where several of his own children were born through Zillis. Tickets to the event reportedly go for $1,000 each, and it draws speakers from the tech and venture capital world, including people like Coinbase and Andreessen Horowitz alum Balaji Srinivasan. What makes this movement more than just a bunch of rich people having big families is the specific belief underneath it, that it's not just quantity of babies that matters, but the genetic quality of the parents having them. An investigation into the movement found that some of those involved in the pronatalist movement also express fears that the quantity of babies being born is less important than the genetic quality of their parents. That idea, quality over quantity, but really quality and quantity together, lines up almost exactly with how Musk has talked about his own reproduction. Remember, this is the same man who's floated the idea that if each successive generation of smart people has fewer kids, that's probably bad, and whose own children's mother described choosing him specifically because she couldn't think of better genes to pass on. It's also the same man who's talked in front of employees about something even bigger than Earth-based birth rates, seeding a future Mars colony. According to New York Times reporting, Musk has repeated to people close to him and to SpaceX staff an idea about how humanity might need to expand off-planet, at one point reportedly framing it in terms of humanity's kind of done that over time, by sort of selective breeding. He's publicly denied ever volunteering his own sperm for such a plan directly, brushing off one specific story with a laughing emoji and the comment, "I have not volunteered my sperm." But the broader idea that a small population of genetically selected radiation-resistant humans might need to be engineered to survive on Mars is something he's discussed with people close to him more than once, according to that same reporting. And it's part of the same bundle of ideas that gene editing researchers are reportedly already exploring for future Mars survival. And this isn't just a private philosophy shared among a handful of tech CEOs at dinner parties. It's crossed into actual politics. One of the country's most powerful men outside Musk has echoed nearly identical language. Vice President J.D. Vance has publicly described declining birth rates as a crisis, framing it, according to reporting, as something driven partly by what he's called a civilizational crisis, driven by a childless left. Political coverage of the movement has noted that many pronatalists see the current moment, with allies like Musk and Vance in positions of power, as a chance to advance their agenda through perceived allies in the Trump administration. There's a reason this movement makes some people uncomfortable, and it's worth naming plainly because it comes up over and over in coverage of it. Investigations into the pronatalist world keep landing on the same uncomfortable questions: whether selecting embryos for specific traits crosses into eugenics, and whether a push to boost births specifically among wealthy people in wealthy countries is really as separate from older, uglier ideas about who should and shouldn't reproduce as its members claim. One investigation put it directly, asking whether choosing embryos with the genetic traits they want amounts to practicing eugenics, and whether their push to boost babies in rich countries is really different from conspiracy theories about immigrants. Musk himself has waded close to that territory more than once. When a user on his own platform argued that democracy is probably unworkable long-term without limiting suffrage to parents, Musk's reply was a single word: yup. So this is bigger than one billionaire's personal choices. It's a network. Musk, Altman, the Collinses, political figures in the current administration, all circling the same basic conviction. that the people currently having the fewest kids are exactly the people who most need to be having more of them. And Musk isn't just funding it or tweeting about it. He's the movement's most visible walking proof of concept. 14 kids deep and reportedly still going. But belief systems have a cost. And this one has landed hard on the actual people at the center of it. The kids themselves and the women who had them. That's the part of the story that doesn't get nearly as much attention as the tweets and the conferences. And it's where we need to go next. Every one of those 14 kids has a mother, and every one of those mothers has had to deal with the same basic problem. What happens after the baby announcement when the ideology goes home for the night? Start with the most public break of them all. Vivian, one of the twins Musk had with his first wife Justine Wilson, changed her name and has spoken about her father in blunt terms. She legally changed her name, citing in the filing that she no longer wished to be related to my biological father in any way, shape, or form. More recently, in a separate comment, she described him as a pathetic man-child. When asked directly if she missed her father, her answer was short. She said, "You can't miss a father who was never really there to begin with." That's one child out of 14 willing to speak publicly and harshly. But the tension around privacy runs through nearly every mother in this story, not just the one who's estranged. Take Grimes. She and Musk had 3 kids together, and by her own account, the fallout from having children with a man this famous, while he was simultaneously having children with someone else, has been a genuine struggle. She said outright that she's tried everything to protect her kids from public exposure. In her words, "The state of my children's lives being public is of grave concern to me, and I think about how to solve this every day. I would hope there was some law that would allow a parent to veto small children from living public lives. But I don't even trust the law to help me now if I tried to invoke it." She's tried more than just words. According to her own posts, she's tried begging the public and her kid's dad to keep them offline, and tried legal recourse, calling it insane that there's no way to deal with it. That's a mother of 3 of Musk's children saying, on the record, that she doesn't trust the legal system to protect her own kids from the fallout of their father's fame, and implicitly from his own instinct to talk about his family in public as proof of his ideology. There's also friction between the mothers themselves, or at least there was. When Grimes learned that Zillis had twins with Musk within weeks of her own daughter being born, it clearly wasn't a smooth conversation behind the scenes. She eventually posted that she'd spoken with Zillis directly and came to a better understanding of the situation, which tells you there was a period where it very much wasn't understood at all. Reporting described her efforts around that time as attempts to de-escalate the narrative after the timing of the births became public. Then there's Ashley St. Clair, whose situation became the messiest of them all in terms of legal fallout. She didn't announce her son's existence to celebrate it. She announced it because she said she had no choice. Reporters were closing in regardless. Her exact words when she went public were that she hadn't disclosed the birth earlier to protect our child's privacy and safety. But in recent days, it has become clear that tabloid media intends to do so regardless of the harm it will cause. She followed that with a direct plea, asking that the media honor our child's privacy and refrain from invasive reporting. That plea didn't stop the story from becoming a legal battle. Within weeks, she'd filed a paternity petition and gone to court seeking sole custody. Musk, according to multiple reports, never publicly confirmed the child was his in the initial period. He simply didn't respond to the claim. That silence, from a man who tweets about population collapse the same week his kids are born, stood out. Eventually, the custody dispute escalated into a fight over full custody, with Musk reportedly moving to seek it himself. And even the mother who's spoken most warmly about having kids with him, Zillis, has had her own complicated moments in public. When their 3rd child arrived quietly, without an announcement, and word got out anyway, Musk pushed back on the framing that it had been done secretly, telling one outlet directly, "As for secretly fathered, that is also false. All our friends and family know." That's a man defending the privacy of a relationship that produced 4 children. In the same set of years, he was publicly declaring that having more children was a civilizational necessity. So here's the pattern across nearly all 5 relationships. Kids are conceived, often with real ideological intent behind them. Mothers are left managing a level of public scrutiny they didn't sign up for. And at least one now adult child has walked away entirely, changing her name and calling her father a stranger in the process. The privacy Musk demands for his family is constantly at odds with the public case he makes for having a family this large in the first place. You can't argue on a platform with hundreds of millions of users that having more kids is the single most important thing a person can do for civilization, and then expect total silence when those same kids' names, schools, and custody arrangements become public. The mothers have mostly tried to manage this on their own terms. St. Clair going to court, Grimes appealing directly to Musk and to the public, Zillis leaning into the partnership publicly while keeping most details private. None of them have gotten a clean resolution. The custody fight with St. Clair alone dragged through paternity testing and court filings well into the following year. Grimes' concerns about her children's exposure haven't gone away either. She's continued raising them as recently as this year. What's clear is that the ideology Musk built his family around doesn't come with an instruction manual for what happens once the kids are born into a media environment this intense. 14 kids, 5 mothers, 1 child who's publicly cut ties, and an ongoing string of custody disputes, and privacy pleas that show no sign of settling down. And with more kids likely on the way given the pattern of the last 5 years, that tension isn't closing. If anything, it's compounding, one new birth announcement at a time. So where does all of this actually land? Musk still says the same thing he said for years. Population collapse is, in his telling, the single biggest threat facing human civilization, bigger than climate change, bigger than anything else on the table. And he's still building his own family around that conviction, kid by kid, relationship by relationship. But the story around him hasn't stood still while he's made that case. Researchers and demographers have kept pushing back on the specific numbers he cites. One economic analysis pointed out that the global population is not collapsing. The rate of global population growth is just slowing down. Population researchers have gone further, describing his specific projections as flawed, with one UK-based nonprofit's investigation concluding that his claims about an impending collapse were debunked as being from outer space. The same report pointed to United Nations projections, showing another 2.4 billion people being added to the global population by 2086. None of that pushback has changed his public behavior. If anything, the birth announcements have kept coming at a faster pace over the last few years than at any point earlier in his life. 4 kids with 1 partner in under 4 years, a 5th relationship producing a child that ended up in court, and no public sign that he considers 14 any kind of finish line. What has changed is the human cost sitting underneath the ideology. One daughter has cut him off entirely and built a public identity in direct opposition to the father she grew up with. Multiple mothers have spent years fighting, quietly or publicly, to keep their children's lives out of headlines. Their father's own statements keep generating. A custody case that started with a single social media post turned into a New York court proceeding to determine parentage of a child who didn't ask to be born into any of it. And the movement he's become the face of hasn't slowed down either. The Collinses are still implanting embryos on a schedule. NatalCon still sells out. Tech executives are still floating the idea, in private and now increasingly in public, that the people best positioned to save the species from a shrinking population are people exactly like them, wealthy, connected, and willing to have far more kids than most families ever will. Musk's 14 children sit right at the center of that whole story. They're not a side effect of a chaotic personal life. They're the clearest, most literal expression of a belief he stated in public, more times than almost anything else he believes, that the world needs more people, and specifically needs more people like him. Whether that belief holds up against the actual data is a debate that demographers and researchers are still having in real time. But the 14 kids themselves aren't waiting for that debate to resolve. They're growing up right now, in the middle of custody hearings, name changes, privacy pleas, and a father who has built one of the most public families in the world. Around a philosophy he shows no sign of walking back. The next chapter of this, whoever child number 15 turns out to be, and whichever mother that involves, is probably already being written. Given the pattern of the last 5 years, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when.